but most of my time will be devoted to the MCC. The other piece in the memo was the North St. Paul piece, and as the staff memo stated, that item will be brought to Council for your consideration and action on December 13th. So with that, I'll turn it back to the Mayor and Council and answer any questions that you may have.
Mayor and Council, if I might just add on to that just a little bit to kind of formulate the discussion where we are. In the memo, we talk about a levy, just so you know what's being proposed. The levy is proposed at $565,000. That's a combination of both the community center and the Recreation Program Fund, and it reflects one of your goals to start working on the MCC. Our goal, as Mr. Kaneko talked about, that starts getting to, if you recall, in our audit and our comprehensive annual financial report, 2009, the MCC fund ended in the red fairly significantly, about $165,000. The goal is to start reducing that and addressing that, and as Dewey talked about, we will really work. We're started now in 10, but in 11 and 12. And for the council, we want to be sure that you're on board to addressing that over a 3-year period and starting to reduce that. Obviously, I mentioned that 2012 is going to be a tough year, and so we are going to have to make some fairly significant changes and reductions in the management and the programming and the way we do things. One of those is to enhance it, obviously, with North St. Paul. But other ways are simply some of the programs that are fairly popular may, because they're not financially sound, may have to be looked at as well. There may be some personnel decisions that obviously we don't talk about those and advertise those. We're going to work through some transitional periods, but there are going to be some tough decisions that have to be made, some of them beginning early in 2011. And so probably the focus is, are you okay with a 3-year plan to address that? If you want a 1-year plan, we simply can do that, but it's going to be very, very drastic and dramatic, and we're not on task to do that at this point in time.
Mr. Nephew.
Personally, I think a 3-year plan is appropriate rather than being too drastic. So I'm supportive of that direction from staff. The question that I had was, I've gotten some comments from users of the community center that have been taking advantage of the daycare services that you have there. And I've heard that there are some changes. I was wondering if you could describe those changes and if there are going to be any alternatives. Well, first of all, what's going on, and are there any thoughts of alternatives for families that need to have some ability to buy short-term daycare stuff along with use of the community center in order to retain them as customers?
Sure, Mayor, Council, I'll take a shot at that. And I'll speak to this from a budget perspective initially, and then go on to some of the opportunities that we're offering in lieu of the closing of daycare. The daycare program will cease to exist starting January 1st. And along with that, we're going to scale back on our themed, if you would, birthday parties too. And the result of those two, if you would, programs being phased out is going to save the city roughly about $35,000. In lieu of, if you would, of phasing out daycare, we are starting to expand our Kids Club program. Unfortunately, the kids have to be at least 3 years or older to take part in that. But we're offering that program throughout the day and even into the evening as well. So we're trying to create some additional opportunities for that age bracket. We really haven't seen, and I've talked to lots and lots of members already regarding this issue, and tried to explain to them, why we're doing it. And but it's a decision that's been contemplated for a long time. And I just felt that it was time to make that decision, and we are offering some things in place of that. And that Kids Club program does include opportunities for some programming, if you would, activities within that whole scope of the kids club too. So we're trying to kind of really focus on that. The daycare was difficult. We did have to have, if we had infants in there, we had to have 2 staff there because of the rules and regs there too. So it wasn't a cost-effective program for the city to run. And we did look at the impact, and we've got some 50, if you would, families, members that use that, and I've probably spoken to at least half of those already. And so that's where we are with that. But we hope to expand on some of the other opportunities too, knowing that we're likely never to go back to that 0 to 3-year-old, but maybe develop some programming aimed at bringing some of those 3 to 12-year-old kids in. So that's kind of where we're at.
The follow-up question I had was, I recall there being some discussion about the space that's been used for daycare, perhaps being used for like a coffee bar or some other revenue-generating thing. Is there still something being planned or in the works for that?
Mayor, Council, yeah, we're looking at that space, and there's a craft room that's immediately adjacent to it too. We're looking at what we think as staff would be the best use, looking at the budget and some programming areas, and hopefully we'll have that decision done by the first of the year. We've got a number of things that we're looking at, but we're looking at possibly trying to retain a long-term tenant too. I don't know yet in what capacity that will be, but we've got a number of things that we're working on, so we are working on that, yes.
Thank you.
So who is the, you're going to be the Park and Rec director then? Yourself?
He is.
You
He
are?
is the Park and Rec
Okay.
director.
But you said something about being at the community center then quite a bit.
Mayor, Council, yeah, I'll have an office here for the Park and Rec piece of that, and then I'll also have an office at the community center as well. And I anticipate that most of the time going forward that I have will be at the MCC.
How much of a deficit is the community center running?
Mayor and Council, the amount in 2009 was about $165,000. That was after the subsidy of about 220. So it's a fairly sizable deficit. Our revenues were only about 92% in that category, and expenses were right on budget. So it's really that we were down significantly on our revenues. Our revenues have literally remained flat for about 6 straight years, where our expenses went up, and so we really need to cut the expenses and try not to cut any of the revenues. That's Mr. Kaneko talked about that. Those are some of the difficult decisions, and as you balance that out, try to cut expenses and still not cut those revenues. So it's a significant dollar amount.
Well, part of the problem goes back to the very beginning. When we first built the community center, I always brought up the fact that when we're doing the books on it, we should include depreciation. And the council at that time said, oh, no, we don't do that. I said, well, somehow we have to set money aside for future expenses, because we know at some point in time there's going to be future expenses. Well, that wasn't done back then, and this is what the result is now.
Mayor and Council, we agree with you 100%. As Mr. Kaneko will tell you, the budget at the community center is nearly 45% of it is simply building maintenance. Those don't bring in programs. Obviously, you have to have a clean building and clean carpets and clean locker rooms. But when you're spending nearly half of your budget simply to take care of the building, that's very difficult. And so you saw an item at the last council meeting, simply Mr. Farr was here, a couple of the compressors that very expensive to repair. We had to simply repair them instead of replace them, simply because we didn't want to run the fund further into the negative and in the red for this year, where he's trying to put them together. We got a proposal that he's working on. He'll bring it back. But Mr. Copen, you absolutely hit it on the head. We're really starting to see those building expenses that are really starting to put the limit on what Mr. Kaneko is able to do. And that's why we're saying a 3-year plan. You've appropriated additional funds in the 2011 budget to help us address that. But we obviously recognize with that 2012 budget being so difficult that we have to continue to cut those expenses. And because there's really, we worked for many years trying to get the revenues up, didn't happen, and so now we're going to address it on the side of the expenses.
Mr. Antonin, do you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to further elaborate on what situation that Dewey has found himself in. He volunteered to work on the Parks and Rec department. That was one of the goals that the council established here this last February. And in addition to that, as it was mentioned earlier, we'll be bringing back later this month, first part of next month, a joint powers agreement to provide recreational programming, et cetera, for North St. Paul. And so this is basically a start in the direction of collaborating, working together. We believe North St. Paul is on board. We have met with the folks from Oakdale, and we're working to have some demonstration projects with Oakdale, which hopefully will eventually result in programming for Oakdale and the different athletic teams, et cetera. There's a number of things to be worked through, and we have to be cautious as we proceed down this. Also, we have some very good indications from Little Canada that perhaps they may join this consortium. So while Dewey is the Park and Rec Director for Maplewood, I'm basically giving him a breveted title, not like George Custer or anything like that, but as a superintendent of Parks and Recreation for hopefully this collaborative that is being formed. That being said, Dewey's got his hands full, and so we're doing double duty trying to fill in on his community and economic development. And as you know, I have one good bench player, which I've used pretty hard, and basically I rode him hard and put him up wet, and that's Chuck All. Chuck was our administrative services director, and we've made some really great progress in that area, and I think Chuck has basically turned over a lot of that responsibility to Gail. And so Chuck is trying to do double duty on community and economic development. Now, I may be playing a sad song here because I'd like to use Chuck in a lot of different areas where I see the need, but at this point we're trying to save money, and everybody's trying to do double duty. It would be my druthers to have this spring maybe a recruitment in both internal and external for a community and economic development director, but we have to see how the funds play out, what the mood of the council is. We don't want to get to the point where we have more chiefs than Indians, and so it's a balancing act. But I'm proud to say that our utility player Chuck All has been doing great service for the city, and I really appreciate him stepping up to the plate and helping out, and as well as Gail getting into the shoes of the finance, and hopefully she'll move up very quickly.
So, I guess one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was the fact that as we're talking about a 3-year plan and addressing some of the issues that we have at the community center, we're really just talking about the operations side of the equation. And so Mr. All, mentioned that 45% of the budget is for maintenance and whatnot, but we have all this maintenance that we've deferred, and so I'm thinking that we could be pumping $500,000 into the community center for 8-10 years to actually get it back to the point where it needs to be. And so it seems like at some point along the way we have to spend some time thinking about what we can do to actually get enough money that we can do like the roof